Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, as part of our special coverage of the Austin Film Festival's 26th year, I chat with Nora Nolan about writing for the comedy Trial and Error, what she learned working on the show, and much more. It's a great interview, and I hope you enjoy. So this is Les, and I'm lucky enough to be chatting with Nora Nolan, who I know best, I think, as the writer on Trial and Error. You've also done some things that the New York TV Festival, and you're written off. Can you talk a bit about your career path and what led you to the writer's room, and was a comedy writer's room kind of what you thought this might be when you were back maybe in high school just writing?
Sure. I actually was like a math and economics major in college. So to say even high school is like, I knew I was funny. I'm allowed to say that now because I get professionally funny. But what I wanted to be was a stand-up. And so I started doing stand-up after college, and I had a day job as a management consultant for like a decade, and I was doing stand-up at night, and then I sort of heard the buzz that a more stable version of stand-up was TV writing. I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm not sure where I thought television came from, but I didn't even know that TV writing was like an option. So I was living in New York, I took a class at NYU, and wrote a spec of The Office, and I was totally turned on to it. A couple years later, I moved to LA, and I took the skill I had of writing jokes and started to learn about story structure and all that. And to this day, I rely heavily on my ability to write jokes, and I'm still learning a lot about story.
On particularly Trial and Error, the show walks such a line between carrying a plot forward with real character development, so that I really do care about how all of these people relate to each other and what happens in their lives. But it's also absurdly silly, several degrees above a lot of sitcoms.
Yes.
Can you talk a bit about what you learned in the room of balancing wanting to put every joke because it seems like there were no jokes left not thrown at the wall on Trial and Error sometimes. Like, everything's funny. Everything in the scene is funny. The weird lady driver laws and all of this stuff. Can you talk a bit about trying to balance the heart of the show versus, that one more singer, that's great?
Yeah, well, Jeff Astroff, the creator and showrunner, he probably won't hear this, but he knows this, that he's a genius. And he comes up with insanely funny things constantly. And of course there's a whole writer's room, but like he obviously drove that process. And it was he balanced that. You know, it's hard not to care about those characters, so you want them to have emotional things happen to them. I learned a lot about specific characters. Those characters they're so funny and absurd, but what makes them able to say the funniest things is they're so specific. And there's no line of and dialogue that you could read and think it belonged to Dwayne. Like, it's so specific, and that's really what I think makes it so funny. The heart was, I don't know. That was just important to Jeff, and he drove it, and he figured out how to make it work. And I agree, it really did work.
When it came to retooling the show a little bit for a second season, can you talk a bit about y'all's concerns in the writers' room, what you wanted to do with the second season? I know often there could be outside pressure of what you know about how long the show can run. Like, do you know you have a second season coming? In terms of prepping and planning, can you talk a bit about going into season 2 for Trial and Error and what y'all wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff really liked the way it hung on real life stories. Like, season 1 was The Staircase. and he loved that connecting it. So when you're to prep for being in the room, I watched every documentary, every murder, and you start to see what's funny in them. And it's funny because I remember when I first it's like you wouldn't think to watch The Staircase and think it was funny, but then when it was on Trial and Error, it was like, holy shit. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what a ridiculous thing. Like, all the twists and turns, they were endless. Like, that this guy had, like, a gay affair, and, like, the guy, I mean, the testifying, it's just, like, that's my favorite scene. On season 1 when the trainer testifies, and it, whatever. Anyway, that's a great scene. Anyway, so Jeff had a very clear vision. Like day 1 of season 2, he told us what the cold open was for the first episode. And as you say, it was close-ended. There were big ideas for season 3, but I think those dreams have died. But it was basically like watch more documentaries and figure out what we haven't made fun of yet.
The idea of watching murder documentaries until they're funny is just
psychopathic,
hysterical to me. Though.
Yeah.
Like, let's just bury the needle on this until the absurdity kicks in, and we can find it. Because you're right, there is absurd moments in all of this stuff, and I hadn't really considered that Trial and Error was so cleanly finding the absurd in these murder dramas, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
In terms of the various tiny little background screwball things, like is it Northeast Peck that's west of the town?
Yeah.
Something similar to that.
Yeah. The time zones.
Do you have a favorite kind of throwaway background oddity of the town that you're not sure people caught?
Oh, God. Well, a lot of stuff was cut. So we overwrote scripts. A lot was left on the floor. I'm actually not sure the time zone thing really got its due, because there were there's so many jokes that you miss a lot, So I don't know if I can think of a specific thing, but I know that I wish we had more time to spend in the bar, where half the bar is in one time zone and half the bar is in another. So they stop serving you. They're like, sorry, we can't serve you. And you literally just take a step over and they serve you. Like, I don't even remember how much of that really made it in, but whatever it did, it was gone in an instant. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember watching my episode of season 2. I had my friends over, non-TV writing friends, and it was so annoying to me that they kept asking questions or laughing. I'm like, you just missed 3 jokes. What are you doing? And it's like, of course, that's how normal people watch TV. Mm-hmm. So I think that's sort of a shame that we didn't have the space to let some jokes breathe. It's not really answering your question whatsoever, but here we are.
I feel like that's part of what makes it so rewatchable, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I find Absolutely. That pays off on a lot of shows where the jokes are just crammed in so densely that Letterkenny comes to mind. There's a lot of shows where the writing's so fast that
30 Rock.
Yeah, when you laugh, you've missed a joke.
Yeah.
And it makes it so rewatchable. I also, and I think this is a TV nerd thing, I watch almost everything with closed captions on.
Oh.
Unless it's a horror thing where I think it's going to ruin it.
Okay.
Or spoil something for me. But it's purely for that. It's because every once in a while I'll go, oh my God, what did they just say?
Yeah.
And I can't count on the streaming apps to all have consistently great rewind.
Totally, yeah.
And so I just watch everything with subtitles now. But I think that's more from being a TV nerd and really wanting to, if I could, I would read all the scripts. And so, yeah, I can't imagine trying to watch my episode with friends. And I'm like, no, I'll explain it later. Just keep watching.
Yeah. Or if they hadn't seen, it was so serialized. So if they haven't seen an episode before, you're like, you see, you don't appreciate the genius behind that joke because you missed episode 3 or whatever. So yeah, it actually, now that you say it, it's a show really for TV nerds and my parents. But yeah.
In terms of carrying that experience forward, do you feel there was anything that you learned from the trial and error writers' room that changed how you approach your next job?
Yeah. Observing, there's a big thing in TV writing called network notes, and the network, gives notes on every script, every outline, and Jeff is a master at taking network notes because he talks over the network executives and tells them what he thinks the note is going to be and how he's going to fix it until they're like too tired to give him any additional notes. So, but basically, like, networks can give you huge notes, and there's a way to look at a script and say, boil it down to something very simple so that you don't have to change that much of what you love or what you want. So it's sort of that's sort of a logistical thing I learned. The character specificity. The next show I worked on was Paradise PD, and it's the same thing. Like, the funniest jokes are for the specific jokes for the specific characters, and it's just like you can't beat like Anne's and Dwayne's. I mean, it's all like, it's so good because the most boring character is the main character, Josh the straight man, like, because he just lets us tell our absurdly specific and great jokes for our other characters. Yeah, I
find that on a lot of sitcoms that I enjoy, or even, Orange is the New Black is not a sitcom, but it's pretty universally agreed that Piper's the most boring character on the show.
Yeah.
And Ted was the most boring thing on, I'm blanking on the name. With Barney and
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother, yes.
Yeah.
So Ted was the most boring character on How I Met Your Mother, and everybody else got to be a sounding board off of him. And
yes.
And the same on Trial and Error. You wouldn't necessarily appreciate the town's absurdity if there weren't somebody standing there going, "What?
Yeah.
No, that can't be the way this runs."
Yeah.
I will still. A friend of mine texted me with me having not seen the episode or having seen it yet, and I started getting all these texts about Lady Driver.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, "Nick, what are you talking about?" And he's like, you gotta go watch this now, man.
I hear about that. Everybody loves that. And that's another, like, Jeff came into the room the first day of season 2 with Lady Driver. Like, I don't know how his brain works, but I aspire to have my brain wired the same way. I hope I hope to work with him again soon.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about all this today.
Thanks for loving Trial and Error.
I actually run another podcast on single season canceled shows where we deep dive through, like, Middleman and Happy Town, and now I'm doing one on Chaos from 2011. And we considered Trial and Error, and then y'all got a second season, and I was like, I'm both heartbroken and overjoyed.
Yeah.
I get another season of this, but also it's out of the running for the niche of my show. But yeah, thanks so much for letting me nerd out about it.
Thanks for having me.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TVDudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.